Warning: this program may contain visuals that might offend sensitive viewers. Parental guidance is advised.
We are the rainbow people of God.
We mustn't even dare to talk about a rainbow nation when it's so far from the truth.
We are catering for Abelungu, and we've completely dismissed who we are.
We as white people must be infinitely more humble.
We cannot comfortably sing in a language that was used only to oppress us.
If our heritage means I must stand in the same line as those who took from us, then it means nothing to me.
Those who died for freedom died for nothing.
I know what kind of Africa I want to see. It's not the one that I see now.
People who don't understand its history and its roots are people who will never understand who they are.
We are spirited beings. That's us.
Take one.
Must I say something?
Mchawe mnumdangu chiuhaba ngomo zibomvu insisukulwana sikaphala unqondo toku izicaka ziyavuthela xa ichaye. Dimlo.
My name is Koko Dineo. I am a Sangoma, an African spiritualist, healer, and teacher.
Rutuli Olaine, Seven's Black House. It's a house for activists. We do so many programs teaching kids and raising consciousness.
My name is Baba Buntu. I am Executive Director of Ebukosini Solutions, a community-based organization that specializes in African-centered education.
Emeritus Professor Shadrach Guto from the University of South Africa. And I'm an African.
Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, I am a political analyst attached to the Center for the Advancement of Scholarship at the University of Pretoria.
Igama lami nguNontsikelelo wakwaMazwayi, ndiyimbongi, ndingumculi. I'm a lot of things. I'm a voice.
We do what we have to do.
I think that's all for now.
Thank you.
Heritage, I see that as the cultural gifts that we've been given from the past. So it's what we have inherited, what we carry with us in terms of our understanding of the world, in terms of our understanding of values, in terms of cultural attributes and expressions of culture. I know there are many different views of exactly what heritage is, but I think I like to see it as what we have inherited from our ancestors, what we have inherited as African people from those who came before us.
What comes to mind is the landscape of the country, the peoples of the country, in their diversity, the languages that we speak in the country.
We celebrate it, and we are encouraged to celebrate it using our diversity. And so it's almost like we are in this melting pot of amaXhosa, amaZulu, njalo njalo. And I wonder if there shouldn't be more.
Our understanding of ourselves is from a colonial perspective. We don't have an enriching, deeper understanding of ourselves as Africans, actually, before we became South Africans, because we foremostly identify ourselves as South Africans and then as tribes. And that's the current understanding for a majority of South Africans about their heritage.
I don't relate to that. It means nothing. There's a say that says another man's heritage is another man's trauma. So if heritage means I must celebrate the great trek where our people got and land got taken, and if our heritage means I must stand in the same line as those who took from us, then it means nothing to me.
I think about political struggle icons. I think about that to Steve Biko. I think about Simangaliso Dlamini. I think about Sankara or Queen Zinga. So, everything that makes me proud of Dingubani Mna.
I feel that Africa is in my blood. My ancestors are from Africa. what they were in Africa before my grandfather's father and mother produced me in Africa.
Blacks, we don't belong, we don't have a space, we don't have nothing. Everything was taken. So that's a problem. But it's better because mama mgeke start. So better than this situation, non be benvela. Election ke sithi pete ndamende kamalala emkhenjelo maveli mdlikidla ka Sathane ngono be benvela. Masi.
The Union of South Africa was a very painful moment in the history of black people in this country. They basically got together to form a union that was designed to bring Boer and Briton together, but to exclude Africans, decidedly. Black people were at the center of it, and black people were the biggest losers of the 1910 formation of the Union of South Africa.
They slaughtered each other, they fought. But it came a point where they said, why don't we have peace and we build a united front for controlling this territory and beginning to exploit it to the benefit of those of us here and of Europe.
If you go back as far as land, you discover that Abelungu, they've always been fighting. The golden thread in white societies is that they are a people with an ethic of war. We don't have that ethic. I think we provided them, Abelungu, for the first time perhaps, with a reason to be the evil they can have a consensus about. That thing which is black is the evil we can have a consensus about. We can say we are against that so that we can unite.
I will show you, 1910, their medal, commemoration of, it's here, we've got it. This is it. It's written to commemorate the Union of South Africa, 31st May 1910. We've got it.
1913 Land Act defined the present day South Africa. It represents all its challenges. It represents many of the difficulties that you see today.
You can't think of 1910 Union of South Africa without thinking of the 1913 Land Act. Just 3 years later, you had this havoc-wreaking law whose impact in South Africa has been more devastating than any single law I can think of, because it is that law that has alienated black people from property ownership.
Guys. I feel so sad and how Abelung manipulate the system. So by if there's instability, it's gonna affect imali yabo. So obviously, it was like quick, fast. I mean, to this day, they don't get along, but they had to get along because bafuni mali and the economy of South Africa.
1910 came after that, when South Africa was shared amongst those who took power and who assumed power over the barbarics and when we were declared, as mongrels and as animals who are worthy to be civilized. Only that time, they came together. There's a book called Illustrated, which was written a long time ago, and it was the illustrations of us black people, and we were declared as and stuff. So for them, South Africa was a space where civilization was not existing. So in any space, in a zoo, pick a spot and own it, and control and take over those animals.
We will be free, all of us, black and white together. Now we are going to say as we wave our hands, we are the rainbow people of God.
Come 1994, some people invented the term that now that we are trying to break the apartheid divisions that were created along racial lines, we are now going to be a rainbow nation.
Black and white together. We are free.
What I like about the concept of a rainbow is that we don't have to infuse and be one, but how it was sold to us is that we are one. A rainbow is not one. A rainbow is beautiful because it's made of multiple colors, and it understands that it can only exist in its beauty as a rainbow because of those multiple colors.
1994 must be appreciated not as a moment of magic, but as a culmination of decades and decades of struggle of African people.
I've been oppressed ever since I was born. My parents have been oppressed also. So I voted. I think things will come my way.
I think Abantu had an idea, aspirational idea about what should happen when you say freedom.
There's this talk of Rainbow Nation. I'm not sure where it is. I'm not sure where it exists. And again, it seems to be a pretty picture. But I think it's even offensive to talk about Rainbow Nation, meaning that everybody's working together, there's this harmony, people are just, it doesn't really matter what color you are. In South Africa, color matters a lot. We mustn't even dare to talk about a Rainbow Nation when it's so far from the truth.
We need to be conscious as abantu abamnyama ba asinayo control ye-media media narratives. So siyaxelelwa how we must feel.
I use props. We're living in a day-to-day Holocaust. Our lives are a day-to-day Holocaust. We're living in a genocidal society because we chose to be subtle with what we want. Where's Chrisani? Winnie Mandela says, I was a married, unmarried woman. I don't know this man, and I never knew who he was. He was absent.
If we are talking about a Rainbow Nation, we're committed to building a society, a non-racial society. It's about recognizing, because now we know white culture. You've sold us white culture. We've seen it. We know all your stories. We know Cinderellas. We know all the cultures. We know Christmas. Can we park that a little bit? And it's time now for white people to learn our ways.
Do you see your color in the rain? Rainbow ain't got melanin, my killer. Rainbow ain't got melanin. We cry tears and tears and tears and tears and tears and tears. You remember Credo Mutwa, he speaks about tears that Mother Ma cried, and they formed rivers and streams. So after those tears that forms that rain comes the rainbow.
The queues of misery where men and sick women stand for hours, ma'am, are still with us, and I challenge any skeptic who doubts my words to go into the offices and see how our people suffer. Those who died for freedom died for nothing.
I think it was a big fiction, myth, which is consistent with heritage, but it's a kind of heritage, unfortunately, emnandi for abanye abantu, in this instance abamhlophe, and ebuhlungu for abantu abamnyama, and we see it every day for abantu abamnyama. The heritage ebuhlungu that we are enduring, actually, instead of enjoying.
What is dangerous, I think, with what the Rainbow Nation is linked to is also this exclusive identity that some South Africans seem to have. And they might not admit it and say it very openly, but it's almost like a little bit under the surface, some South Africans feel like, at least I'm from South Africa, like I'm from a better place. I'm not from that Africa, like I'm from a better Africa.
So there's no Rainbow Nation without respect between other races. I can't have a friend who does not know my reality. They're like, no, it's fine. We can all live together, forget the past. But I'm like, but you don't even know anything about me. You don't visit in Soweto. You're sitting in your little bubble and then you're telling me you're South African. You've hogged all the material resources of the land and then you think that we can get along.
This is not just about being nice to each other. This is a bottom line issue. Unless we actually improve relationships in the workplace or at universities and even at schools, we're not going to be going anywhere.
A true heritage should be a heritage of resistance. I think we should draw more from a culture of resistance. And people who come before them, the kings who fought, actually, I think they're inspired by our people who fought, who pushed back and said, no, way of life and this thing that any introducer is not our way of life.
You need to break the rainbow idea if the new South African nation will be built. And there are many, many people who have begun to reject the rainbow notion because they feel that it is a notion built on the foundations of the supremacy of white culture. And that is not the way to build a new nation.
May 25th, 2019 will mark 56 years since Africa Day was conceived in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Some South Africans will be offended if you say, oh, you look like somebody from Mali. And they'll be like, what? What do you mean I'm from Mali? I don't know. How can you say that? And which speaks to also that we're still grappling a lot with identity. We're not sure if we really, truly identify with the rest of Africa, although we sometimes say it.
If you become a nationalist, you don't want anyone else from outside of your territory to come into your territory. You become nationalistic, narrow-minded, hating anybody outside of it. You want to survive alone, but you can't survive alone.
As Somalian people, we are very peaceful people. We don't want anything problem. We don't fight with any problem. We want a good relationship with South African people like before.
We are two nations, and at least from that divide of black and white. And I don't see how we will ever be, at least at that level, be one nation, because how that came about would have to be, resolved. And yes, the entire administration Mandela was about reconciliation, but it was a reconciliation without justice. So we'd have to go back to the question of justice. How do you bring justice to this situation? And we know what is required, and Abelung are not willing to give it up.
It was a total myth of being a rainbow nation.
Yeah.
I mean, that extended as far as people going to the 2010 World Cup or visiting Soweto once in their lives for the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
But, when it came to really getting to know each other, really taking stock of where we'd come from and thinking hard about what we needed to do, I think there was very little of that going on.
In the eyes of the world, South Africa has worked very hard to have a PR machinery that looking from outside of South Africa looks glorious, it looks incredible. Even when you visit South Africa for a day, if you go to certain spaces, you think like, wow, this country has just completely outdone itself. It has really dealt with its history, has really come alive. People are working together. It seems such a harmonious society. But those of us who are part of the society and live it every day, we know that that's not the truth. So it's like there's a national identity that works for brochures and for tourism and for pictures that we put out there in conferences overseas. But seen from within the experience of the majority of South Africans, this is not a glorious country. This is not an easy country to live in. This is not a country of many opportunities. This is not a country where you feel you have choices, where you feel you can really master your identity.
Land is not just land. It's got nothing to do with soil. Land is water underground. Land is air on top. We create a beautiful backdrop when we build shacks in Alex. It's okay, it's cool, it gives a good contrast for scenting. it's okay for black people to be thrown out there in Khayelitsha because it's a beautiful view when a tourist comes to land in Africa, because that's what Africa should be seen and how it should be seen.
I'm cautioning us against talking about land only in the format of those who took it away from us. So we talk about title deeds, we talk about fencing, we talk about compensation, we talk about how much per acre, and we talk about only those aspects. We talk about it as commodities. Land is not a commodity.
So I would say, even without going to their monuments, things they monumentalize as heritage, things that remind them of the history that they've created of violence. Even in mundane setups, the divides don't really have to stay at monuments. They come much closer to how we live every day.
Well, I think dispossession is an important marker of not only of identity, but of vision for the future. That is the evil of poverty, that what poverty does is to limit not only your movement, not only your ability to thrive, but also to limit your vision of yourself.
If you noticed, abantu abamnyama are in a state of depression right now. Nobody's confronting, there's no spiritual development happening.
It has taken away the essence of who we are, which is our spiritual identity, because it replaced what we believed and how we believed in Creator and Divinity with religion and with religious texts and religious dogma that actually took us away from the key essence of our identity as Africans.
We had a conversation that says, do not burn in Beppo because it doesn't smell nice for other people. Seemingly like everything that we do and who we are and what we are is wrong if it doesn't go along the status and the white standards.
Your identity as a person is everything to do nomhlaba. We are nature. We are part of the animals that God created. So when you displace us of our land, we're hanging. Where do we belong then? There's no one who's going to feel secure if they're not grounded. Land is our food. What are we gonna eat? Land is our money. Where are we gonna build our businesses?
If anybody thinks in South Africa that you can take the land without compensation, you're living in a dream.
We must buy a hole for us to be buried in and pay for it in our own land.
If you want to start a civil war in South Africa, do that.
So they think that when we're looking for land, when we're asking for land, we want soil so that we can build shacks. No, it's not that. The land we're looking for, it's where Sentin is. We don't want some barren land somewhere there. We want the share, the equal share of what's been built by our own people and with our own hands.
It's not some collateral. It's not something you can put in your pocket, in your wallet. It offers itself for very practical things like you can grow izinto there to eat, you can live there, you can do rituals. But it is this strong sense of spirituality and connection, and it actually defines. I think it's one of those foundational places that define value.
The whites are accused of stealing the land, which is just not true. They worked for the land, they paid for the land.
During colonialism, what happens is that a nation or a power decides that we're going to invade you. Absolutely no discussions are being held, absolutely no permission to enter is being given, and that nation says we are going to invade you. It also does something to how we now start to see life. And when violence and that form of colonial power becomes normal, and we live with it for many generations, it also starts to become part of us.
If you look at the levels of crime and mayhem and violence in black communities, You can't explain this only in economic terms. It is also because deep down there is an emptiness, there is a lack, there's a trauma, there's a woundedness.
Hey, be careful, don't be too black, we won't get jobs, don't be too black, we'll end up in jail, don't be too black, you won't make it in this life, don't be too... So we've been programmed to be not too black. So the minute somebody wants to bring out their blackness, it's like, whoa, wait, stop. No, you're gonna, you know, so it's part of that trauma of, guys, okay, what we know is that if we don't show our blackness, we're gonna get jobs.
When we don't own and relate and remember land, we don't have an identity. And I think it speaks to what we're going through as a country right now, because we might have bits and pieces of an identity. I'm not saying we're completely identityless, but we struggle with identity. We struggle with feeling self. We struggle with knowing self. We have a lot of insecurities. So I think land is something we need to be reinitiated into understanding. I'm one of those that when I deal with young people and when I deal with communities, I instruct everyone, please sit down when the DSTEM comes in the national anthem. We cannot stand and sing that. We cannot comfortably sing in a language that was used only to oppress us.
The same people who messed us up now give us an anthem to sing, which is theirs, the same one that they killed our people with. That's part of the damage of black South Africans. You as a black South African, why are you not even, we're not angry enough.
Whose Africa was meant to be sikelelwe. Because when you say masikelelwe, it means we are worthy, we still need to be civilized. God civilized the uncivilized in a way.
UDSTEM, and they sounded their voices, and the response that they got was from the echo of the mountains, because this land was that empty, and we sing along with that to celebrate. It doesn't make sense. So I think it's important, at least as an entry point, to start a conversation about wrong about this thing.
The fact that even the ID document none of the information as balwanga, so it almost seems like there's been a switch where we are catering for abelungu and we've completely dismissed who we are.
When national iconography becomes disrespectful, and I think it is disrespectful when you ask a people who have never even gotten the time to heal to say, sing in the language of your oppressors. Make sure that when you go to a job interview, you speak a very good language of those who oppressed you. Those are very violent experiences.
If you live in a country with which you can't identify, you wake up in the morning, you drive on a street that is named after someone who oppressed your ancestors. You go and attend a school which is named after someone who did the same. You end up thinking, I don't own anything in this place. This place does not belong to me. So you have a lot of South Africans who don't have a sense of belonging and a sense of ownership.
Objects of art are not created only to commemorate the time. They are the objects where the spirit can be kept and locked. 4, if you name any street after Cecil John Rhodes or whoever, you are allowing the spirit who colonized you and who raped your ancestor to forever live. So the statue of Cecil John Rhodes was standing there as some ritualistic exhibition like any statue of a foreign colonial master. The statue and the object becomes a thing where the spirit that person carried will be kept forever. From the taxi, when you get down at the taxi rank going down Shoprite to walk out the street, you are looked at by some grotesque images and statues of Illuminatists. When you get to a white man's house as a domestic worker, you are blown as tired as you are because that object has harvested and vultured and hyenat all the spirit that you carry and that you possess. When you were walking down that street, you are confronted by blue eyes of a white man, and he tells you, today, Veronica, Joanna, I'm gonna rape you and pay you a minimum wage at the end of the month.
Skatele, and you know, I'm so grateful for AMA 2000 because I'm dismally disappointed in my parents' generation. I think they gave the game away. I'm disappointed in my generation because I think that we're too submissive. And I'm so proud of AMA 2000 because Bayola and they Batelela and they know what they want and they're not about to be second-class citizens to anybody. And we look to them for leadership, kahle kahle. So we support, mina personally, nyaba supporter. And whenever their causes come, I mean, our fees must fall, that's powerful. Like your generation that can be associated with that, my generation's busy being slave queens.
Laws are being made within the constitutional framework because the Constitution is also aspirational of saying there are certain core values. We want to create a society based on dignity, the pursuit of equality.
I am thankful that we have the social grant system because if you remove that, there would be chaos. I mean, the number of people who simply can't make ends meet, can't put food on the table, would grow exponentially if you didn't have the social grant system. And of course, if you didn't have the NSFAS program, half of the black people who are educated today wouldn't be educated.
This world is governed by a power that wants injustice. It's not just that it happened. Oh, what happened here? Oh, some people just got poor, some people just got rich. It doesn't work that way. There's a system that makes sure that that's the script that will be followed. And when you threaten it, when you stand up to it, when you seem to be able to take it down or do something to it, it will come for you. It will do something to you. It will stop you. It will make sure that you're demotivated to continue. So we need to understand how brutal these powers are. People are not playing. It's not by chance. And that's why I think if we want a change, it has to be a systematic change.
Similarly to the Constitution, it's a great piece of paper, which we struggle to see it manifest in reality, because it's also been adapted from the West, where also a system of oppression was engineered, you know. So it becomes quite difficult sometimes for these things to work because we keep on adapting, but we don't want to innovate to meet the needs of the current realities of our people.
There have been very dramatic developments in the UK today as the scheduled Brexit draws nearer. The government has asked the Queen to suspend Parliament until just 2 weeks before the Brexit deadline, and she has agreed.
First of all, senzani with the British Parliament system, and then like Parliament pays rent to the Queen. So why do you think that this system is going to work for us? You were given a vote as abantu abamnyama. Did that give you any money? Did it give you any land? Did it give you a job? You got a vote though. So I'm like, why are you guys chasing a system that doesn't work for you? Just now we were voting whatever. We saw how easy it was to rig the system. Abantu voted 2-3 times. But you guys put on your blinkers. We're like, no, it works, guys, it works. So I'm like sitting here watching a nation lying to itself. We did not dismantle the system. You just filled in it with other black people.
Black people are just a face. They're just a facade. I will only be very happy when every black child chooses to abandon those white institutions. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna become a VETS alumni. And you're gonna be sent amongst amahlabat. You're gonna be sent amongst the uneducated. You are a beam of light, wow, but don't forget, you carry our emblem.
We need to address the holistic challenges that the people are facing. And until now, My sense is that we're just dealing with the surface. In fact, the system as a whole may need a revamp.
Shall we ever be equal? No, that is a dream. But according to the constitution of the country, we want to create a society where there's no discrimination, unfair discrimination, where we are trying to promote equality. And there are many laws, there are many things that are being done to try and lessen inequalities, to eradicate poverty, and so on, but inequalities remain.
People are waking up. We're calling this the woke era, because I feel like after the woke era, then we can then return to oneness, because of course the essence of us as spiritual being is oneness, is we are all one, but there is realities that we have lived that have said we are not equal, that have said we are not one, so we cannot transcend without addressing those realities. So as a black race, we need to understand our history, but we need to say, what can we do for ourselves?
The way we clap for each other when we do stupid things, when we have 21 cars going to Durban July, for what? Like, what value is that bringing? Like, Abelung have been chowing this economy, but we don't see their wealth flashed. When we found out about this guy from Durban July with the mini cars, he got his wealth from the trucking business. Do you know how many trucks are on the road? All those trucks are owned by Abelung. Do you see them showing off their 21 cars? No, they're eating quietly. So it speaks to you not feeling yourself enough. You need other things to be like, yeah, I am good enough, I am. Look, I've got this, I am good enough. You're trying to prove to us. If you're still busy trying to prove to us how good enough you are, then you're not there yet.
If I'm so used to see myself as a product of a violent history, a colonial history, and that's all I can define myself as, and whoever I engage with who looks like me, and that's all I see, we are all products of this, and I relate to us as victims, as subjects, as people who were just done stuff too. It also does something to my aspirations. I no longer aspire, I no longer see a royal sister or brother in fellow Africans. I just see other oppressed people. I just see other people that I might not even want to associate with. I don't see people that I could want to set up a company with. I don't see people that I want to work with, because they just remind me of what I'm trying to get away from. And that's a very dangerous thing, because what that is at the center of that is me not wanting to be myself. Is me not wanting to be African, is me not wanting to identify with this continent, this culture, this politics, this history.
It's a settler colonial displacement of identity. It's like ukufika kwabelungu displaced how we come to, know ourselves. And so now we know ourselves as workers, as slaves, as failed pop, as, Mastandi, if you think about it, we didn't have those things. But now, sazana ngolo hlobo, umuntu Mastandi because he owns a piece of a plot, and therefore, patabandu kakubi.
It's an equivalence of being a leftist and an equivalence of being a liberal. Come dine with us during the day and everything. Cook that food and dine with us. We love you. But bear in mind, at the end of the day, you remain a so. Hey, it's 5 o'clock now. Taxis are paid $17 at 6. Don't forget, you don't belong here. Yours is the hood. So all those institutions are there to slow us down.
We need to kind of set ourselves a goal. What do we want Africa to be in 100 years, 200 years, 300 years from now? I know what kind of Africa I want to see. It's not the one that I see now. And I believe that it's meaningful for me to make some impact on the time that I live in, but with the complete understanding that somebody's going to have to take it further. I will not see this in my lifetime, and I've accepted that.
We built civilizations with no Western technology. We were part and parcel of civilization that made West and Europe what it is. We were the first monarchs, untainted, God's beautiful particles.
Asithi abantu abamnyama are the kings and queens. It's because it's coming from, we are the first human beings. All the races, they come from us. So, si firstborn, si tabadal, which is why you might find why belung bakhona ukuzibulala at the farm killings, but abantu abamnyama mlunga ngabe anyway, but angeke bambulale. And it's because even spiritually, sibadala. So we're dealing with the last born and the issues of the last born.
That's why it's important to also study the early stages of our history, understand how we created civilizations, understand how we created universities, how we were very deeply invested in knowledge, how equipping people with, for instance, a particular skill, whether it was a mechanical skill, whether it was how you use your artistic skill to present messages to people, years of training, years of being molded, years of being informed, so that when you finally stand up and you present yourself in front of people, you really know what you represent.
Do you know, we have lost that, because that's the impact of colonization. Erase everything of black greatness, demonize it, call it name, call it ungodly, and then replace it with what you want people to believe of themselves, and then therefore they become easily enslavable. I mean, Marcus Garvey speaks about it. People who don't understand its history and its roots are people who will never understand who they are.
Today, you spit at us and you call us savages. We were the ones who colonized America thousands of years ago. Yeah. We were the ones who founded the Chinese civilization 6,000 years ago. The first Chinese emperor, Fuxi, was as black as myself and probably just as ugly.
They don't take ownership of their greatness and the things that they've done. To this day, nobody can match the pyramids. All over the world, I mean, our spiritual connection, nokucula, nokudanisa, there's an energy that Umtomyama has, abanye don't have that. So we have been stripped of that, and we've been made to believe that asnayo.
We as white people must be infinitely more humble. We must take a back seat. We must stop trying to take the lead in situations. We must be prepared to listen. What really gets to black people is the day-to-day petty instances of bystander racism, of people being racist without even being aware of it, of treating black people as if they've got no dignity.
When we work in restaurants, we learn to smile to whiteness, and we learn our dances, and we dance them for German people so that they can give us money. And we forget what is the spiritual script of our dance? What is the spiritual scripts of our songs? What are they there for? Are they really there just to get a few coins from tourists? No, they're not.
The reason in Africa we do mbeleko, it speaks to us in this continent. The reason that there is very little sun in Europe and there's more sun here, our melanin handles it. They don't have melanin. But nobody seems to have a problem with that. But we have to cut off everything and then just keep on adopting in the name of unionship, in the name of the rainbow.
Power must be built collectively. And we struggle with unity. We struggle with working shoulder to shoulder. We struggle with differences in language, nationality, and other things that kind of separate us. If we can get to a point to really see the power we actually hold, and sometimes I feel that everyone who has an interest in Africa, because remember, this is a site of a lot of interest from outside. Chinese are here, India is here, Brazil is here, Russia is here, Europe is here, US is here. The only people who don't really want to be here seems to be us. At least we don't want to invest in it. We were like, I'm in Africa. Like, I wish if I had an opportunity, I would leave.
I think we must use our diversity as a strength and not as a weakness. We must go back to this fraught history that we have and find elements of it that we can build on. Because even in our fraught history, there are beautiful things.
There's this thing of securing minority rights, which in some of the interviews, someone had posed it, but what about minority rights? And he answered and said, there shall be no majority, there shall be no minority, there shall just be people. And I think that sits a lot of Abantu who have something to lose, the colonizers, in a tension. Ebians are very unsettled to say, as in promising Nix.
Let's say we could possibly remove every other race and only keep black people within the country or within spaces of influence. We have also been westernized. Whiteness also reproduces itself through our actions. You don't need a white person in the room to see and experience whiteness. We speak to each other, we treat each other in ways we have learned from whiteness and from European and westernized cultures. So I think it's not only about removing the physical aspect of race.
So we can reimagine South Africa where it's more compassionate, nobody's going hungry. We can, the gap between the rich and the poor, we can do away with that. We can, like, rich people keep retrenching abandaba who are on lower levels and then increasing their salaries. These are things that we can change, and we just make it fair for people. It's actually not that serious.
You must see God in you. Recognize God in you. Recognize the melanated genius in you. See God and the melanated genius in another black child. More than anything, if you can starve all these institutions, that would be a very revolutionized move. To starve all these institutions, to take away the glory and come out and say, sorry, sir, this is mine. Today your money is irrelevant. We're not for sale. Thank you. You will see. They will know how to respect us, how to write about us, how to talk to us, and how to address us.
It's sad because up in South Africa, black people are always ready to erase their own history. I mean, your Heritage Day, it's King Shaka Day. That's the day that we were meant to teach our children Ubanu King Shaka Wenzan, because he's one of the most powerful militant strategists in the world, in the entire globe that we've ever seen in the beginning of time, since the beginning of time. So the children should know who Shaka Zulu is. They should know Shaka Zulu's descendants, they should know, but we don't know that. Now they were calling it Pride Day because the children don't even care. They don't even realize the relevance and the importance of you knowing what your story is. They don't know how powerful. If you know who you are, there's a certain way you walk. If you know that you come from a lineage that's powerful, you come from royalty, you're gonna walk like a king.
I think we need to remind ourselves that we are not just the clothes we wear. They're an expression of who we are, but they're not the essence of who we are. On Heritage Day, it's a reminder of how can we return to that it becomes a norm and a habit versus a once-off daily thing.
Sometimes I feel that heritage events turn into just putting on a few African clothes, eat some African food, a little bit of African drumming, and then we're done. Like that was amazing. I don't think that's amazing. We should do that every single day in our households, but it's not a specific event. It's not something very extravagant in that.
I think people already understand it as just chill with the friends. I would add a book, maybe read a book, I write what I like. That's what I would do.
People who fought the struggle are in our family, it's us. Go learn who the names are and call on to those ancestors. It matters to know where you come from, to know, let me take on that energy. Because now we've been stripped, you think you're nothing, but it's a lie.
We, the melanated geniuses, every black child, the blackness in them is a floating melanin. It's a true and a spit image of a god. We've got no chains on our hands, no shackles on our feet, no shackles, nothing in our mind. We are free, flowing, cosmic species. We are spirited beings.